chapter 2 of Joey, how a blind rescue horse helped others learn to see. So remember when we left off last night, we had just finished the prologue in chapter 1, and the woman had, I think her name was Kim, had adopted Joey, even though he was blind, to take back to her ranch where she works with children. So, it's okay. So, I think that happened at the beginning of our last video yesterday too. That's a glucose alarm going off. This is real life, people. So, I'm going to go to chapter 2 and see what happens. 3 hours later, the Tahoe pulling the horse trailer turned onto the gravel road leading into Hope Rains. 20 acres of sprawling oak trees, wide open pastures, white horse fencing, and meandering woods nestled off Highway 50 in North Raleigh. Tall pines standing as sentinels cast long shadows along the winding drive. "Welcome home, boys," Kim said, stealing a glance at their two travel companions in the rearview mirror. "You're going to love it here." Just to the right of the drive was Hope Rain's largest pasture, where the biggest geldings, Dietz and Cody, were kept. Geldings are boy horses that can't make more horses. The 6-acre pasture contained a run-in shelter, several deep water troughs, and a wooded area that offered welcome shade. Kim's favorite feature, a 12-foot-tall white wooden cross, a visual reminder that Hope Rains was quite literally a gift from God. The idea for Hope Rains had been inspired by the book Hope Rising, Kim Meter's story of the organization she started in Oregon that paired emotionally wounded children with rescued horses. Kim read the book twice in 1 week, fascinated by the concept. Page after page printed pictures of children forming relationships with horses who acted like mirrors for them. Not only would wounded children see parts of their own stories in a wounded horse, but because horses tend to reflect what they are seeing, children learned things about themselves as they cared for their horses. It was a dynamic Kim understood all too well. While growing up with an emotionally distant, alcoholic father and a mother who enabled his behavior, Kim found the unconditional love she longed for in her beloved saddlebred horse country. Kim's father continually pushed her into competitions, always wanting her to perform, to stand out, to make himself look good. But all Kim wanted was to hide away with her horse, spending hours riding, brushing, and talking with her equine friend. In an environment that often felt unsafe and uncertain, country gave Kim the stability and acceptance she craved. Or at least he did until her father sold him when she went away to college. Many years later, Kim had almost forgotten how much country had meant to her for those formative years. But recently, when Kim was reeling from the death of her mother, a friend convinced her to begin riding again. She found it healing and therapeutic. The more she rode, the more she wondered if God had a greater purpose in mind for her. One day at the library, Kim found herself typing the words, "Jesus and Horses," into the online catalog. There, she found this book by another woman named Kim, "God Does Work in Mysterious Ways." She soon found that she couldn't stop thinking about starting a similar program in Raleigh. Granted, the idea seemed far-fetched. She only had just gotten back into riding, and she didn't have the slightest idea how to run a fully functioning ranch. Not that it mattered. Before you could run any ranch, you had to have a ranch. "I'm just a stay-at-home mom," Kim had lamented to her friend Lori one sunny afternoon at Chick-fil-A as they sat watching their children romp around the large indoor area. "God wouldn't really be calling me to do something like this, would he? I mean, I haven't worked since Chance was born," she said, smiling at her 5-year-old son. He turned at the sound of his name before running to catch up to his almost 4-year-old sister, Isabel. "I'm probably just reacting to the book, right?" Lori had patiently listened as Kim shared about her past, the book, and the crazy dream of creating a place for children and horses to help each other. Finding herself out of words, Kim took a deep breath and waited. She valued Lori's opinion as both a friend and a spiritual mentor. "I think it's a great idea, Kim," Lori said. Kim's eyes widened. "I mean, you obviously are passionate about this. You have personal experience with horses. You have a husband who adores and supports you." Lori sat back and studied her friend. "Go for it. If it's God's will, then he will make it happen." Is it really that simple? Just trust God and start working toward making the idea a reality? Kim left Chick-fil-A that day both excited and terrified. There was just one last thing to do. Make sure her husband, Mike, was on board. "Are you really serious about this?" Mike asked her later that night after the kids were tucked in. "I know you've been thinking about it for a while. In fact, you haven't talked about much else, but are you really sure you know what you're taking on?" "I think I am," Kim replied, looking down at her tightly folded hands. "I mean, it's been a month, and I still can't let go of the idea. I've prayed about it. We've prayed about it. I've talked to my sister, to Lori, and to Pastor Scott. And then today, my devotional reading included 2 Corinthians 1:3-4. God is a merciful Father and the source of all comfort. He comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort others." Kim turned to face her husband as they sat together on the sofa. "What if God allowed me to be confronted by country so that one day I would be able to help other kids be confronted by horses too?" She drew her legs up underneath her. It was so easy to talk to Mike. It always had been. from the first time they met more than 15 years ago. I even thought of a name for the ranch, she said, then paused for dramatic effect. Well, don't leave me hanging. Hope Reigns. You know, spelled like horse reigns, but sound like God reigns. What do you think? Mike was quiet for a moment. Kim held her breath. His opinion was so important to her. What if he doesn't like the name? I think it's absolutely perfect, babe. I say let's do it. Mike said, his gaze tender. Wait, for real. Are you serious? Kim laughed. I've never seen you like this before. You're different, energized. There's something going on. So yeah, let's see where it goes. But it's going to be a big change for our family, Kim pointed out. I know your new marketing position lets you work from home, but it's not like you can watch the kids and do your work. And we can't afford a nanny for Isabel and Chance until they start school. And the upfront cost, we don't have that much in our savings account. And Mike, this is crazy. How are we going to do this? Mike took his wife's hands. Slow down and take a breath. We obviously have a lot to figure out. But let's just take it one step at a time for now, okay? You want this. You can do it. So we will figure it out. He looked in her eyes. I believe in you. Of course, dreaming about something is one thing. Actually making it happen is something altogether different. First things first. After doing the math, at least 1.5 acres per horse, Kim figured she would need 20 acres for a decent-sized ranch. But finding 20 acres of affordable, usable land in North Raleigh was easier dreamed than realized. Over and over, Kim was told, you'll never find the land for that, or that much land will cost you a fortune. If I had $1 for every time I've been told you'll never find the land, I could purchase half of North Carolina. Kim confided in Mike after checking out another disappointing lead. Several weeks later, Kim started second-guessing the idea. Is this really what you want me to do, God? Discouraged and weary, she decided to put things on hold for a few days and take Chance and Isabel to an Easter egg hunt hosted by a local church at their off-site property, only 15 minutes from her house. Sorry, my child just ran away. To an Easter egg hunt hosted by a local church at their off-site property, only 15 minutes from her house. As she and the kids walked to the large crowd gathered near a sprawling oak tree, Kim couldn't help but take in the entire scene. The colored eggs were scattered in a mowed field, while a handful of horses grazed in adjacent pastures. There appeared to be 2 access roads and another overgrown field on the property. What is this place? Mama, they're starting, Chance shouted, tugging on her hand. Hurry, the eggs are going to be all gone. Yes, let's go, she said, grabbing her kids' small hands and dashing into the frenzy. After 10 minutes of zigzagging around the field to grab plastic eggs, Chance's and Isabel's baskets were full. Can Isabel and I go play for a while, Mama? Chance asked, spotting several bounce houses near the parking lot. Of course, I'll stand right here and hold your baskets. As she watched Chance and Isabel, a man with a pleasant smile approached her and introduced himself. Hello, I'm Will Warren, business administrator at Bay Leaf Baptist Church. I'm so glad you were able to come to our event. I hope your children are enjoying the egg hunt. After exchanging a few more pleasantries, he turned to greet other visitors, but stopped when Kim blurted out, Does your church own all this land? The man studied Kim's face for a moment before answering. We sure do. It was gifted to us about a year ago by one of our longtime members. She didn't have any relatives and decided to leave her family's land to us in her will. It's a beautiful property, he continued, scanning the area, but I have to confess, 75 acres is a bit much for us. We really aren't sure what to do with it. Other than host a massive Easter egg hunt every year, he added with a wink. Kim's heart was beating so loudly that she thought if the church staff member couldn't help but hear it. Yes, it truly is beautiful, she replied. As she led her children back to the parking lot, Kim looked more closely at the surroundings. There was no fencing, no plumbing, and too many trees, but somehow she knew this could work. In her mind's eye, she could picture a riding arena at the far end of the property and a feed shed by the parking lot. She could easily imagine sectioned off pastures and hitching posts throughout the landscape. But 70 acres is such a prime location. A quick Google search on her phone revealed the discouraging truth. The estimated value for the land was $7 million. Well, it could have been perfect, Kim thought, as she buckled her daughter into the car seat. Yet as the day went on, she just couldn't shake the feelings that the church property would be a perfect fit. And so even though she had no reason to think it could work, she decided to reach out to Will Warren at the church. If nothing else, it would be a good practicing going forward. After getting the kids settled for their rest time, she sat down on her computer and began typing a 4-page proposal, outlining her vision for the ministry and a mission statement. When Mike came in for mowing the lawn, Kim handed him a glass of water and the proposal. Will you take a look at it? She asked. This is good, Kim, he said, still scanning the pages. Really good. But since when do we have a mission statement? Our vision, since about 10 minutes ago, she said, laughing, our vision is to provide true hope and real healing for every child. Mike read out loud. Our mission will be to provide comfort to hurting children and their families by providing one-on-one sessions between caring leaders and extraordinary equine counselors, many of whom will be rescued horses and those who have faced abuse and neglect themselves. All services will be free of charge. Kim saw the question in her husband's eyes even before he said anything. Have you really thought that last sentence through? I know we discussed it, but how are you going to fulfill your mission if you aren't bringing any money? Kim had spent many hours thinking about the same point, but she had done enough research and talked to enough social workers and ministry leaders to know that the kids with the greatest needs would likely be the least able to pay. Yes, offering free services meant more work for her, putting together fundraisers and applying for grants, but she was willing to do everything possible to make it free. To be honest, I don't exactly know how it's all going to work out, but I'm choosing to trust God in this one. Kim noticed Mike's shoulders tensing ever so slightly, and her heart went out to him. I know this seems risky. All right then, let's see what happens. 2 days later, Kim was sitting next to a Warren in the church office. Thank you so much for meeting with me, she began, trying to keep her trembling hands out of sight. I wanted to talk to you about an idea at how your property on Creedmoor Road might fit in. Here's a proposal for you to review. As he read, Kim tried to gauge his reaction. Had she been foolish to come here? The business administrator laid the document down and smiled. This sounds like quite an undertaking, he said, rising from his seat and walking toward his desk, and definitely one we could use around here. He wrestled through several drawers before returning to the chair next to Kim. He unrolled a large sheet of paper at the coffee table. A property map. This shows the property lines, easements, and access roads. Will explain, pointing different markings. This area is where we have the egg hunt. Over here is where we keep a house for missionaries on sabbatical. And this section is used once a year for a youth retreat. The rest of the acreage is untouched. It definitely would need to be cleared, and I imagine it would take a lot to get ready for a herd of horses. Kim's eyes darted back and forth. She had certainly seen similar maps these past months in her quest to find land. She was so absorbed in mentally tracing the property lines that she almost missed Will's question. So would these 20 acres be enough? When his question finally connected with her brain, Kim nearly shouted, enough? It would be perfect. Now the church can't sell you the land. It's a condition of the will. But I will propose to our senior pastor and the elders that we lease the property to you. Is that okay with you? Are you serious? Kim asked, tears of joy pooling in her eyes. I am quite serious, Will assured her. I'll run it past the elders tonight at our monthly meeting, he said, and they'll need to agree to the terms. Kim caught her breath. The terms? 20 acres of prime real estate in a quickly growing community could easily lease for 10 times what Kim could afford. Kim smiled politely at Will, thanked him for his time, and said she would look forward to his call. Oh well, at least I got to practice my business proposal on someone. The next afternoon, as Kim was surfing through real estate websites, her cell phone rang. Kim, how does $1 a month sound? Will Warren asked. I'm sorry, $1 a month for what? For you to lease our land, Will chuckled. 20 acres, $1 a month? Does that work for you? Kim was glad she was sitting down because she suddenly felt lightheaded. You mean we can use the land for just $1 a month? Our church believes in what you want to do, Kim, and we would be honored to support you in Hope Reigns. Kim found herself at a loss for words. How do you say thank you for such a lavish gift? Finally, she stammered, how can I possibly? I never imagined. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. You're most welcome. Now you go find some of those equine counselors you mentioned and get to work helping those kids, okay? When you stop by Bay Leaf to review and sign the document, I'll introduce you to our senior pastor, Marty Jacob. Yes, sir, Kim said, ending the call with a joyful laugh. You never cease to amaze me, God, she prayed, with tears streaming down her cheeks. You took what everyone said would be the hardest obstacle and crossed it right off the list. Suddenly, Kim wasn't alone. Chance and Isabel had wandered into the back bedroom because they heard her voice. A moment later, Mike appeared, ready to shoo the kids away so Kim could finish the call. But when he saw the tears, he immediately wrapped his arms around her. I'm so sorry it didn't work out, he said, brushing the hair away from her eyes. Didn't work out? Kim laughed. The church is letting us use the land for $1 a month. The look on Mike's face was priceless. God did it. We have a place for Hope Reigns. Over the next several months, the real work began. First, there was a mountain of paperwork to fill out and a file in order to become an incorporated 501c organization. Then there was insurance to buy, something Kim hadn't realized would be so costly. We are in the same category of risk as those guys who clean windows on skyscrapers. Kim lamented to Mike after meeting with an insurance representative. But the insurance needed to be in place even before the improvements on the property began. The physical changes were extensive, clearing the land and installing fences, and while the labor was free, courtesy of church friends and willing neighbors, it seemed that every time she turned around, Kim needed to pull out her new credit card resolved solely for Hope Reigns related purchases. The expenses kept coming, and Kim was getting more and more nervous. She fought hard to keep costs down as much as possible. Borrowing some equipment like horse trailers and looking for a good bargain tractor on Craigslist. Fencing material was another nightmare. Because of the sheer amount needed to enclose the pasture, wood and traditional PVC horse fencing were out of the question because of the cost. After researching other options, Kim decided to use a combination of flexible fencing material that looked like thin strips of PVC and coated wire. It wouldn't be as picturesque and as the high-end horse farm in the area, but it would keep the Hope Reigns herd safe. Every day seemed to bring a new expense, a new need, and a new problem, more than Kim could handle herself. She formed a board of directors made up of very business-savvy people that met twice a month to help her with the bigger financial decisions. Before a single horse stepped on that property, things had to be checked off a never-ending list. Storage sheds for feed, supplements, and equipment, hitching posts, water troughs, and hay boxes. Kim was spending more and more time away from home, which made for some interesting childcare situations as she and Mike adjusted to their new normal. We can't possibly afford full-time childcare while you're still trying to get things up and running. Mike commented one evening after Kim suggested they hire a temporary nanny. Well, I can't watch them and oversee the work at the ranch, she shot back without even thinking. And I can't have them running around the house all day while I'm on the phone at meetings. Working from home means I am working at home. Mike said in exasperation, we have to figure something out. Kim sighed. Mike was right, of course, but it was one more thing to figure out. One more thing to schedule, one more request for help. Some days Kim brought the kids with her. Some days her sister, Christy, or various friends helped out. And other days, Mike watched them from home while he worked. It wasn't ideal. It wasn't easy, but they somehow made it work. As a word of hope reigns began to circulate among Kim's friends, the church leasing them the property, and her kids' preschool playgroups, more and more volunteers started showing up for Saturday barn chore days. Friends, acquaintances, and strangers helped clear land, build sheds, construct fences, paint wooden surfaces, and even donate a little money. It was humbling to have so many people helping bring hope reigns to life. Kim had never been more exhausted than during the 7 months it took to get the property ready to receive their first horse, Gabe. Gabe was a Shetland pony who had been used for children's birthday parties before his owner sold her farm and donated him to a rescue shelter. Kim had discovered him on the shelter's website, still full of life and spunk. When she met Gabe, it was love at first sight. The walnut brown pony with a blonde mane, with a blonde mane belonged at Hope Reigns. He was quickly followed by an older gelding named Sunny, who was rescued from going to an auction. Barb had found out about the Palomino quarter horse in need of a home, and he was quickly added to the Hope Reigns family. For several months, Gabe and Sunny were the sole residents, which was a good thing, considering that the staff consisted of Kim and Barb, neither of whom were being paid. It wasn't as if Kim hadn't tried to pay her friend. You will not pay me a dime, Barb would continually answer when Kim would broach the subject again. I believe in this, and I'm delighted to help. Money will come, but for now, being here is all I need. It took months to figure out a routine. Kim lost count of how many times she and Barb had both fed the horses without knowing the other one had. Or worse, sometimes neither of them fed the horses at all. There was much to learn and much that was needed, but in September 2010, they believed that they were ready to hang a wooden sign by the busy highway. The sign simply said, Hope Reigns of Raleigh, with a silhouette of a horse and a child. With the exception of a little blurb in the newspaper about their new endeavor, the sign was the sole extent of their marketing strategy. Amazingly, the little sign brought more and more volunteers, as well as their first session referral. Of course, as sessions, the heartbeat of Hope Reigns became a reality. So did the need for training. All the session leaders were volunteers with horse experience and a desire to help hurting children. Kim would always start a training session with a statement, at Hope Reigns, the horses are counselors, not the humans, making it clear that the adults were simply facilitators between the horse and the child. Yet it was important that the adults be prepared for working with hurting and often vulnerable children. Thankfully, Kim's good friend Lori was a social worker with a gift for training and equipping lay leaders, and her expertise was invaluable. From money to resources to training, there was always so much to consider. It had been a long road, but all the blood, sweat, and tears she'd invested in the ranch had been more than worth it. Hope Reigns had become a beacon of hope, an oasis where hurting children could come and find peace amidst the turmoil of their everyday lives, a place where they could feel safe, a place where, just for an hour, they could simply be kids and enjoy a relationship with a horse who would love them unconditionally, and a place where all the horses would receive unconditional love for those who cared for them. That's the end of chapter 2. I was not aware when we started this book that there was a lot of religious or spiritual references. So even if that is not your thing, you can think about it as universal love or positivity. So I don't want you to think that I'm preaching. I just didn't know there were quite so many religious undertones. So far, I'm really liking it. I have a really weird resume. Before I was a teacher, I was a horse trainer. I've done all these different things. And one thing I did do many, many years ago before I had kids was I worked with what we call at-risk kids and facilitated equine-assisted psychotherapy, where you use horses, what this woman is doing, to basically do therapy with children. Not physical therapy, but therapy for emotions, for abuse, for neglect, all those kinds of situations. So when I'm reading to it, I'm really connecting to understanding the process of making that happen, because it's really powerful to watch children and teenagers and adults connect with an animal and get such positive results from it. So I would love to talk more about that with you as we continue this story, but let me know in the comments or send me a remind how you're liking this story, if this is one you want to keep up with. So that was chapter 2 for Bedtime Blessings. You are wonderful, you are worthy, you are amazing, you are missed, and you are so loved. I hope your night is filled with sweet dreams, and I am grateful for you. Find something that you're grateful for tonight. Good night.